Hello friends, I want to talk to you today about that which knows, that I often refer to the Chitta. Chitta being the Pali word, and in Thai it is referred to in Thailand as Puru, knowing, the knower. This I often refer to as something slightly separate from what we consider to be ourselves. If it could be described as a witness, an observer, and often is called awareness or conscious awareness. And recently, speaking on the subject of anicca, dukkha, anatta, the three characteristics of existence, being impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and not self. The first two, anicca, impermanence, I think most people readily understand when we point it out to ourselves, or someone points it out to you, that all things are impermanent. This, at least intellectually, is easy to accept. And this practice is about developing wisdom to really understand that. And likewise with suffering, that as a result of all conditioned things being impermanent, they are consequently unsatisfactory. And this word, we use the Pali word dukkha to explain this unsatisfactoriness. So please, if you didn't see those last three videos, then you can watch those prior to this one. Well, you can watch them at any time, but they precede this video. And explain with cross-references to each other those three characteristics. And then finally, anatta, which did and often does provoke some comment, some questions, some ideas from people, which is good. I'm very happy to receive comments, because it's the comments that really encourage me to keep doing this, because it gives me an impression as to what you're interested in and what to talk about in the future. And it's great to know that people are actually watching this and getting something from it. It's great feedback to have. So thank you for those comments, and of course thank you for subscribing if you've subscribed, and if you haven't, please do subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss any future talks coming up. And anatta, as I said, does often provoke some discussion, debate, dare I say it, even argument. Well, it shouldn't, because it's really as simple as the first two. But where perhaps in my explanation there was some lacking, was the clarity between what I often refer to as the Chitta in the Pali word, or that which knows, and can be described as conscious awareness, and ordinary, let's say ordinary for sake of a better word, ordinary consciousness. They're not to be mixed up. They're something slightly different. In fact, they're something very different. So, self, essentially, to sum it up, is our perception of this physical body and this thinking mind, which, as a result of causes and conditions that only we are ultimately responsible for, create this personality which we consider to be us. But of course, as it is purely as a result of external causes and conditions, albeit they being created by ourselves, or we can be responsible for them in the large part, it is still not really us, because as you see through your lives, these personalities, this person, this individual that we think we are, changes continuously from child to adolescent to middle age to old age. As we progress through life, we get old, we get sick, and we die, bringing us back to the first, anicca, impermanence of all conditioned things. And, of course, explaining again dukkha, the suffering, in this very existence. And it is this attachment that we form to these selves, which ultimately are, of course, self-created ideas as opposed to a reality, that causes us additional suffering. Because when this physical body is ill, or just deteriorating with its age, in its condition, then we are disappointed. But it is to be expected. However, like a car, we buy a new car, it gets old the minute you leave the showroom. And suffering begins immediately as you try to look after it and keep its value, keep it looking new and clean and pristine. It is the same with our bodies. And likewise with our thinking minds, we continue to develop them, we continue to educate ourselves, learn things, acquire knowledge by way of qualifications and intellectual understanding through many means, for many reasons, very good reasons, in order for us to progress well through life. But likewise in old age, this faculty of ours is going to diminish, the ability to remember new things and even to retain cognition of things we've previously known, learnt, understood, even can diminish, and often does. And certainly at death, where does this go? You don't take this intellectual knowledge with you. So as we progress through life, we need to try to learn, direct and develop through this practice, this Buddhist practice. But saying that, however, whether you're Buddhist, Christian, Muslim, or of no religion whatsoever, what I'm talking about is really the mechanics of how nature, how life, how this existence is. So it is, although part of the Buddhist religion's very deeply seated or deeply rooted philosophy, if you can call it that, it is in fact, generally speaking, the truth of all beings' existences in this world, in this worldly realm. So this is why we want to get to know it and understand it in its practical association with our own personal existences, in order to better our lives, improve our lives, by way of understanding more what to expect, or rather not to expect. Because to expect that we will not get old, we will not get sick, and we will not die, or to put that to the back of our minds, is really fooling ourselves, kidding ourselves, steering ourselves away from the truth, the reality of how it is. This personality, being the result of external causes and conditions, like I've already said, was as far as I went in its explanation in that last video, when describing the understanding of the Chitta, that which knows, as being separate from that, as an observer, as a witness. And I didn't go into the details of actually what makes up that personality being formed from this physical body and this thinking mind. Now in Buddhism, using the Pali language again, we use what we call the 5 khandhas to explain this or to understand this. Khandhas simply means like aggregates or component parts, ingredients to a whole. The complete, if you think, item is this self. And this self, if I remember rightly, the 5 khandhas, I'm not sure I'll remember the Pali words, but are this physical body. The Pali word for that is rupa. And then we have, as a result of this physical body, and us having it as our experience, there are feelings. Physical feelings, of course, but also emotional feelings that arise as a result of this physical body. So that is the second. I'll just check you what the Pali word for that is. It's sacha, I think. No, sorry, of course it's not. It's vedana, sensation. Sensation or feelings. So I have sensation down here, but I was saying feelings, but this is Vedana. Okay, that's the Pali word. So the next Pali word is Sanya. And Sanya is actually perception. Perception being how we perceive from our experience these feelings. So what we make of them, good, bad, neutral. Or indifferent. So these are the sort of 5, these are building up these 5 components of what is our personality. The 4th is Sankhara. You may have heard that word before because it does come up in a lot of Buddhist talk. But this is simply mental formations. So we, as a result of feeling, as a result of then perception of that feeling, we then make a mental formation. This is where we make the decision as to whether we like it, dislike it, or it's neutral. But this is usually based on past experience, on memory, or imagination as to how this will affect us into the future. Very often, rather than the current real experience of it in the present moment, here and now, which is really what this practice is about, drawing your conscious awareness, that which knows, into in order to experience this. And this leads me on to what comes next, which is consciousness. And consciousness is VINNÄNA. Consciousness is our actual consciousness that we know as consciousness. Now, you've heard the expression unconscious. Someone is unconscious. They have no cognition. They have no recognition, experience of the former 4. So they cannot feel their body, they're not experience therefore feelings, they're not perceiving those feelings, and they're not creating mental formations about those feelings because they are unconscious. So they are not conscious of their consciousness, being unconscious. So if you've ever been unconscious, it is like going to sleep perhaps and then waking up again, and with no recollection of dreams during which, because that would be some form of consciousness in terms of recognizing mental formations in the form of dreams. But no consciousness, being unconscious, is a condition of no experience of those former 4 aggregates. So this is consciousness, or VINNÄNA. Am I saying that correctly? I think so. VINNÄNA in that respect. We develop the understanding of that is what our perceived self is. Those 5 aggregates or khandhas as a whole make up what we think we are. This physical body, its feelings, emotions, and how we perceive them, what we create out of them with our memories and our future planning, our imagination, and our conscious awareness or consciousness of that reality in terms of this physical being, this living organism. Then we have the Chitta, the Pali word for the knower, that which knows, or conscious awareness, which is not part of the khandhas. So although one describes it, this is where language often becomes a problem. We use the language conscious awareness to describe Chitta sometimes, and then it is mixed up with VINNÁNA, whereas Chitta and VINNÁNA are separate in the Pali language, very separate things. But you could translate both of them in some respects to consciousness. But the consciousness of the Chitta is always in awareness. So whereas VINNÁNA cannot recognize cessation of the 5 khandhas, and I'll explain that in a moment, the Chitta does recognize cessation of and experience cessation of the 5 khandhas. So in meditation, we sit, we let our physical bodies settle in order to relax, and our thinking minds to settle in order to become calm. Now initially we might practice this meditation as a pastime in order for just that, for calmness, for relaxation, as an alternative form to, say, exploring some form of entertainment or taking some sensory some form of other enjoyable thing, going out, drinking, entertaining yourself, smoking, I don't know, whatever you do, to enjoy yourself. And we learn how to become calm and satisfied through simply sitting and observing a meditation object. There are very beneficial effects that come from this form of meditation, and this is often why people meditate. But it isn't just that. The actual, because you can, as I just mentioned, there are alternatives which are quite morally acceptable and fine to do also in order to relax. You could go jogging, go for a walk in the countryside, but that is not meditation. Meditation leads on in stages. And ultimately, in the stages of samadhi, which is where our mind becomes very focused on our meditation object, to the extent that it can become separated, if you like, or not affected by those khandhas, by this physical body and this thinking mind. So this includes emotions, both negative and positive, including joy and bliss that comes in the early stages of meditation, that will also be not noticed in the advanced stages of samadhi. But it can also include discomfort and pain, or even yearning for something, craving for something, wanting something. By the very fact that you have detached yourself, put some detached this Chitta consciousness from this this physical body and this thinking mind, these khandha, this vijnana consciousness, part of these 5 khandhas that form this self as we perceive it. So this is really the ultimate goal of meditation, to become free from suffering in this lifetime. Because of course all of our suffering is derived from conditioned things, being that all things we can see, hear, smell, taste, touch, think about even, and experience, but even our thoughts and our emotions, good or bad, happy or sad, are impermanent. They're conditioned things. Even these personalities, even this, what we perceive as ourself, is a conditioned thing as a result of causes and conditions. Or, if you like to use a Pali word for that, karma, that is actions of body, speech and mind that we have done in the past leading up to this moment to create these causes and these conditions for this group of khandhas, these aggregates, to be what it is, or to seem to be what it is. But what is not impermanent is the conscious awareness in the form of the Chitta. So it is better just to keep referring to it as Chitta and Vijnana, rather than trying to differentiate between two entirely different forms of consciousnesses. Because what you will see in meditation, and this is the only way you can experience this for yourself, is that you can become fully detached and not be experiencing the five khandhas, yet still be in full conscious awareness, but in a far more pleasant state, which is not describable in terms of language, because it isn't a result of conditioned things. And of course we only have language to describe things we call real, conditioned things that are impermanent, unsatisfactory, and ultimately are not self, and not self for this reason, because what is our Chitta. Now it is not a soul, because a soul in other religions is associated with the results of those causes and conditions, with the khandhas, with the personality. The Chitta is something entirely separate, which is why it is not impermanent. It is permanent. This is what, if you believe in rebirth, goes on into being reborn, if it is still attached to this realm of existence. Where it goes on to be reborn is as a result of the causes and conditions that this existence, these khandhas, have put in place, good or bad, which will give it the momentum, propulsion, to push it into the next form of existence. So if its tendency, propensity, has been to cling and be towards greed and towards wanting lots of food and sensual desire, it's going to certainly push you in a direction whereby you can get more of that in whatever form. But even not taking that into account, from moment to moment, this is something that continues throughout our lives. The more we try to satisfy our greed, the greedier we seem to become, because all of these sensual desires are insatiable. They give us a temporary feeling of satisfaction or relief or enjoyment, but then we want more. But it is the nature of things to require more each time in order to get a little bit more enjoyment. And this is how addiction arises. But we learn through some form of discipline. Not everybody becomes addicted to things. Not everybody who drinks becomes an alcoholic, for instance, or gambles becomes a gamblerholic, or whatever you'd call that, because they have some level of restraint. They know that they should leave off doing that activity for a while, and then maybe go back to it, and they'll get some fun again. But this is all still the khandhas. It is the Chitta, however, that is the witness, the observer, that can be liberated from these khandhas, and the ties that we also call fetters can be cut, can be broken. It can be freed from them. This is through the cessation of desire. Now, the Chitta can experience the cessation of the khandhas, whereas this consciousness of the khandhas, vijnāna, cannot experience its own cessation. It is unconscious, so cannot do so. Only on regaining of conscious can it know it was unconscious, but it cannot know for how long without being told. You know this from seeing it in hearing of people being unconscious and coming back, that they don't know how long it was for, but they know they're fully conscious again. Whereas the Chitta is always in awareness, but it is in a time, it is in a place of, not a place, because all places are part of the physical world. These are all part of khandhas, really, because this physical these locations are part of are all conditioned things, and therefore have time, and time is directly in relation to anicca, to deterioration, because if nothing ever changed, then there would be no need for time. Time simply is a way of us measuring. It's very much a convention. But the citta, when separated, when just witnessing away from these 5 khandhas, is in a place of timelessness, in infinite spaciousness. And this is where we look to abide in samadhi. But there, in samadhi, in this abode, one can develop wholesome mental or wholesome mind states. Wholesome mind states, yes, of the khandha variety, but also to develop good karma, so good causes and conditions for the citta to continue, if it's continuing into rebirth into a future life or even into the next moment, to have a better experience, to go to a better place, for things to run more smoothly. This in turn affects the physical body and the thinking mind in terms of its peace and its calmness, in terms of its health and its stability for as long as it can. So these are the positive aspects of meditation, way and far beyond simply enjoyment, calmness, peace, and even love when practicing, say, metta meditation. It goes so much further than that. But one can dwell in this spacious awareness, the citta can dwell with all of these aspects of love, loving kindness that we call metta, of compassion that we call karuna, of mudita that we call, of joy for others, which we call mudita, but ultimately in equanimity, which in the Pali word is upekkha. The reason it has this equanimity, unwavering, this unwavering word's gone, unaffectedness, so this unwavering quality is what I'm looking for, of a, say, like a very firm tree in a windy conditions. It may sway a little, but it doesn't bend and like a fine whippy tree. Maybe you can see that going on behind me with the bamboos breaking. And but equanimity is a very stoic state or mental quality that we develop through this practice. And how it is established is through the wisdom, the knowing resulting, so panya is wisdom, resulting from samadhi, meditation. And that is only achieved through keeping moral virtue in our lives, which we call sila. So our overall practice is sila, samadhi, panya, keeping moral virtue, meditation, and developing wisdom, or wholesome mind states, and reducing unwholesome mind states, in order to see this citta that doesn't cease when it witnesses and sees and experiences the cessation of all the 5 khandhas, including vijnana, consciousness. But the question that has come up is, well then, doesn't that mean the citta is another self? Well, no. And the reason it is not another self is because the self is impermanent, being a result of causes and conditions, whereas the citta is not impermanent. It continues. It is there, the witness, the knower, even on sensation of the khandhas. And one can also know from that through experientially. You don't need me to tell you this, and you can't really read about it. Even in the suttas it's described as I'm trying to describe it to you, but in my more simple way, in huge amounts of detail and time again. And you can study this all you like, But the best way to understand it, to know it, is to experience it. Like learning to swim. It doesn't matter how much you read about it. In fact, you cannot read a book to learn how to swim or ride a bicycle. You have to do it, experience it, know it for yourself, and then you will be swimming or you will be riding your bicycle. You will need assistance at first, floats or stabilizers, something like this. This is often what we use in terms of training in meditation, watching the breath, going through the body parts, various techniques you've heard of. But eventually this isn't necessary. Eventually you will just develop the ability to be in samadhi, with equanimity, abiding in loving kindness, compassion and joy for others, the 4 Brahma Viharas. And then when you come out of meditation, these will continue. They will continue with you throughout your daily activities. So it isn't just a end of day fix, sitting on a cushion, meditating to become calm and cool and peaceful. It's a permanently developing quality of mind. Remember, developing wholesome mind states, reducing unwholesome mind states. So this Chitta is not another self, not another victim, another not another victim of anicca, dukkha, anatta, not another victim of impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and thinking that you are in control. It is just a witness in equanimity, abiding in infinite spaciousness, fully conscious and aware, but timeless, going on and on and on. And then another question which came up was that when one finally really experiences this for oneself, because people do, and people ask me, well, I've experienced this for myself, what next? You know, it seems to me that now everything is pointless in my life. Watching them, going to the movies, going to a restaurant, dancing, swimming, going to the gym, even going to work. What is the point of all that now? And it's a very good question. Well, the point is, our point in existing is to eradicate greed, hatred and delusion. Greed, hatred and delusion are our root defilements, or the root defilements that we call kilesas in the Pali word, that really are the basis behind desire. So wanting as opposed to needing. So either wanting something you haven't got or not wanting something you have got, like a pain, is a desire. And this is the basis behind greed. And then there is aversion. So not liking or even hating, it gets described as. So greed, hatred and delusion. And this, and delusion, is simply ignorance, not understanding the nature, the characteristics of existence that I've explained previously, which go towards helping you to understand and eradicate greed and aversion. Because when you realize the unsatisfactory nature, the impermanent nature of all conditioned things, then you no longer have such desire or need or wanting for those conditioned things. Likewise, when things disturb you and you don't like them, you no longer have such hatred or aversion, because you know that even those things that disturb you or annoy you are not permanent. They too will pass away. So you become more equanimous. And this is what the problem is. One therefore is developing a form of detachment or disenchantment from even bad things, but good things and bad things, and not seeing the necessity in them anymore, as a result of a reduction in greed and hatred. But until they're fully gone, you cannot experience true and full liberation. So it is a gradual process. So we keep going, doing the good things we can do, actions of body, speech and mind, generating good karma, so the results of good actions of body, speech and mind, to develop wholesome mind states and reduce unwholesome mind states, to establish the qualities of metta, of loving kindness, of compassion, of joy for others, and very importantly, equanimity about our experiences, and increase, in fact, this experience of disenchantment. But unless you're a fully enlightened being, there will always be some residue of greed, of hatred and delusion. And in the stages of enlightenment, which I have described in previous videos, possibly will do again in the future, you will see how we eradicate these fetters, these ties to this existence, this continuation, and therefore create the causes and conditions for rebirth, both in each moment and from now into future lives. But looking at this moment, if I do something now, it's going to affect the next moment. So if in the present time we are acting in accordance with good qualities, then the present moment should follow that it will go well. If we repeat this continuously, if we keep our sila, as I said, it creates the causes and conditions for good meditation and for development of wisdom. And as you see how it's going, then the understanding of these faculties of existence, the understanding of how these khandhas are separate from our citta, when we can go into those stages of samadhi and experience this for ourselves. And yes, we can understand the unnecessariness in some of the things that we do in our lives, and some of those things we can stop doing. We can let go when we know. This practice is to know and let go. And you may then see it isn't necessary to go clubbing and drinking every Friday night. In fact, it's detrimental to your practice. So you let go because you know. So gradually those things you will stop doing them through this practice. And this is, yes, the point. But then what's the point of life? To continue with that practice until greed, hatred and delusion is no more. Then you are fully enlightened and you are liberated. And at that point, the question will not arise as to what's the point of this life, because this life is something entirely different. You're fully in the present moment with the experience of here, right now, in equanimity, with infinite joy, in a timeless spaciousness. And this is what we call enlightenment. This was the stages that the Buddha went through to become the Buddha. And this is the teachings of Buddhism, the teachings of the Buddha. But it is also something, even if you're not a Buddha, you can understand because it's scientific. It's not even so much a philosophy or an idea. These are things I'm talking about that you know yourself and experience each and every day during every moment of your waking hours. So therefore, in answer to those questions, the citta no is not another self, but it does recognize the old self. And the point of life is to continue to eradicate greed, hatred and delusion, breaking the fetters in order to be free from rebirth into further existence of impermanence, unsatisfactoriness and no control. It's the other translation of anatta, not self, because we cannot control these physical bodies or even these thinking minds. However much we educate our thinking mind, we cannot control it. And we don't do that in meditation. We just allow it to settle. Then it will become calm. So I think that's enough for this talk, which was really in response to some very interesting comments from people coming from that last video, the video last week. So thank you for that, and I hope there's something useful in here, or something that you may wish to talk about or comment on, then please do. If there's something useful, then use it, experience it for yourself, or if not, then just ignore it. But if it's useful, then share it with others, and see if they can derive some benefit from this practice also. Because people are always interested in looking at something. If they see it's having a positive effect on you, they'll want to experience that for themselves also. So thank you for watching. Until next time. Goodbye.